Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we're going to take a look at the Sun and Mercury crossing the south node of the Moon in the sign of Libra. This is acting as a bit of a foreshadow for our upcoming solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So we're going to take a look at this today. You'll be noticing these things over the weekend. And so I'll give you some sense of what to watch for given these transits as well as the timeline. Before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections if you've got them. If you have a story to share with the eclipses or any of these transits, you can always use the hashtag grabbed or email us grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. Tell us the transit, tell us your story. We may feature you in one of our monthly overview episodes or a future grabbed storytelling episode where we reflect on how you have been experiencing the transits. Always love to hear from you guys. I think I said this, but you can find transcripts of my talks, any of my talks, on the website nightlightastrology.com. I say it every day, but just to remind you, some of you like to have that copy of the transcript. Head over to the website. There's two things coming up that I want to turn you on to. One is going to the events page and the live talks. In this month of October coming up, I'm giving a talk called The Myth of Astrological Compatibility, What Everybody Gets Wrong About the Astrology of Relationships. I've seen a lot of things that work and a lot of things that really don't work when it comes to astrological compatibility. So I've put together a presentation for you, and I think you'll find it interesting. And so you can register for that on the website under the live events tab. It's October 17th, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make the webinar live, you get a copy of the recording. Next, I want to take you to the courses page. Of course, if you're brand new to astrology, check out our new Astrology for Beginners course. This is about 10 hours worth of content, as I'm finishing up the recordings right now, of content that is meant for absolute beginners. It's a great place to start. If you're thinking about studying astrology or you're new to astrology, just wanting to learn the basics, check that out. It's all recorded content you can move through at your own pace. And the first year course is coming up starting on November 16th. We begin a new cohort. You can learn about ancient Hellenistic astrology in a one-year immersive program. The pre-registration sale lasts until October 15th. So you can take advantage of the sale rates until October 15th. After that point, normal rates will be in effect. However, now or anytime leading up to the start of the program, we do have need-based tuition assistance. Need-based tuition is there for people who are on a fixed income or limited budget, or you're experiencing hardship, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that people who want to study astrology and really need to make sure it fits within your means have an available option. Because we believe this is a spiritual science, it's always been part of our business model to include affordable pricing for our programs. And pretty soon we will have our affordable reading service in place too. We're just about ready to launch that. So stay tuned for more on that. At the end of today's episode, if you want to learn more about that first year program and what it includes, I've tagged on about a 10-minute informational video that walks you through everything you get in the program, everything you learn, how it all works, how many classes there are, when they meet. I show you the class website so you can get a look at it. So do check that out. After today's content, you'll find that that is tagged on at the end of our video. All right, well, let's take a look at the transits that are perfecting over the weekend. That is the subject of our talk today. And let me just pull this back a touch. So here we are on Friday, and the transit that I want to point out is in the process of forming here. You can see that Mercury and the Sun are about to cross the south node in the sign of Libra. Reason this is significant is that we have a solar eclipse coming up. We're almost under a dark moon, and the new moon solar eclipse in Libra is just about to take place. Let's move this forward just a touch. Wednesday, October 2nd, next week, we have that new moon solar eclipse with the south node in Libra. Mercury's just separating at that point from the cazimi with the Sun, which takes place between Monday the 30th and Tuesday, October 1st. So next week, we will be looking at our astrological horoscopes and overview for the month, mostly in terms of that big solar eclipse. But what's really interesting is that over the weekend, we can see that the Sun will cross the south node of the moon. This is Saturday, September 28th. And then Mercury will cross the south node of the moon Sunday, September 29th. That means that that south node, which is the activation point for the eclipses that come through in Libra, whether it's a lunar or solar eclipse in Libra that we've had over the past year or so, that activation point, that tail of the dragon, K2 in Indian astrology, is being activated by both Mercury and the Sun. And immediately after they both conjoin the south node of the moon, those two planets on Monday are conjoined, and therefore Mercury's cazimi are at the heart of the Sun. Fascinating series of events, like really, really fascinating. It's funny because at the beginning of the week, I did an astrological overview for the week ahead, and I actually omitted this because I just missed it. And then, like the next day, of course, after I had published it, I was like, whoops. Well, it's not too late. So here we are, and we have a chance to look at this and what is coming over the weekend here. So I hope that this will be useful for everybody. We'll be talking more about the solar eclipse in depth for horoscopes and monthly overview, and you'll see me giving it treatment on Wednesday of next week as well. But there are 5 things to watch for given this combination. By the way, I use the mean node in case you're using the true node. It's slightly different, but the measurement of the node's position, for some of you, people inevitably always ask me which measurement I'm using. So you can see it in the top left corner of the chart if you look, but it's the mean node. These are the 5 things that I would watch for given the combination of Mercury and the Sun simultaneously, very close together, moving over the south node and then conjoining. And all of these, I believe, are acting as a kind of foreshadowing of the eclipse in different ways. So, number 1 on my list, things from the past being clarified. One of the meanings of the south node of the moon, it's definitely a part of the modern evolutionary school of thought. If you guys heard me talking with my friend Ari recently, it's been fun to brush up on the EA view of the nodes. The EA view of the nodes will look at the south node of the moon in terms of the different kinds of, let's just call it the past life karma or situation of the soul. And the transits of the nodes will reflect different areas of the chart that we're working with that have history behind them karmically. Well, the ancient Indian view is not entirely different in the sense that the south node of the moon will tell us about places where we are refining our wisdom or understanding of things through trial and error and through much experience and therefore much history. However, there are some differences, but insofar as we do have some commonality between the ancient Indian perspective and the evolutionary perspective, I think it's worth saying that when you have Mercury and the Sun moving over the south node just before an eclipse, there may be a way in which one of the major themes of the Sun-Mercury, which is clarity, right? The Sun is illumination and wisdom and intelligence, and Mercury is the rational mind's ability to sort of compute and understand and even articulate or speak things now combined with the Sun that are sort of just true and have been illuminated. So the upcoming Mercury-Sun cazimi, a moment of illumination, often for Mercury, an empowered Mercury moment, in the sign of Libra with the South Node, speaks to things that are becoming clear through experience, through trial and error, as if crystallized or refined insights or wisdom that have some history behind them are coming to the surface. So I love that interpretation. I think it's very basic, easy to work with. See if you notice it. Number 2 would be a decision or point of resolution. Now, one of the things that Libra classically points to is judgment and evaluation. The sign of Libra begins at the fall equinox or the autumnal equinox. It's called the fall because the sun falls down in the sky. And at this point, all the way up until the end of Pisces, will be in the metaphorical underworld of the solar year, in which case there will be more darkness and light in the 24-hour period. This is all through the symbolic orientation of the northern hemisphere, but remember, it's symbolic. A decision point or a point of resolution has to do with the fact that the scales are leveled. The karmic accounts are balanced. And this may also reflect a moment of judgment or decision. Something being resolved karmically, which is what happens in the afterlife, in the underworld. Your soul is judged and evaluated and sent on its way to the next lifetime, whether you believe that or not. But think of it metaphorically as a reaping of what's been sown. The fall equinox is the harvest. And so we think about this harvesting metaphorically as a point of decision, judgment, or resolution, or sort of a leveling or balancing of the scales karmically, probably with some element of crystallized insight or wisdom related to the past. Number 3 would be a balancing of the scales within relationships. One of the things that Libra points to is the sign that is, it's the fact that it's the sign of Venus. So it points to relationships. When we have a Libran solar eclipse with the south node, it is as if there is a balancing or a reaping of what's been sown, or some kind of uh, um, what do you want? It's like equalizing or a karmic leveling or something like that with respect to relationships. It could be work relationships, could be love, it could be sisters, a Venus signification, it could be friends, another Venus signification. But when there are important karmic reckoning moments within relationships, uh, we think of, or something like a South Node Libra eclipse brings to mind a kind of balancing of the scales within relationships. And it's interesting to note that the ruler Venus will be in Scorpio, a place of often quite intense catharsis emotionally within relationships, or intense passion and conviction about things, and the need to enter into sometimes meaningful power struggles or meaningful arguments or meaningful conflicts. I say meaningful because I mean some of these things are sacred. Like conflict is a creative part of life at its best. Could there be some very important clashes of value in our relationships or discussions, and the need to seek resolution or mediation, even though it's a little spicy, comes to my mind with the South Node Libra eclipse and Venus, the ruler, in Scorpio. Now, what I'm saying is that we're going to start seeing things drift in that direction as Mercury and the Sun come together and both cross the South Node. We're going to start to gain clarity about the need for some kind of reconciliation, mediation, resolution, or balancing within specific relationships. Number 4 would be a weighing of options and influences. One of the things that Libra also does, and Mercury and the Sun and Libra coming together reflect this, is to evaluate different options or strategies before making a decision point, before coming to a resolution, which is perhaps indicated by the upcoming solar eclipse. It could be that we're weighing options, that we're making calculations, and that we're looking at what kinds of influences or people we want to ally ourselves with or part ways with. The benefit of different people or things being weighed or evaluated comes to my mind also with Venus and Scorpio, which might point to some of that evaluation having to be done in a somewhat covert manner. You don't want to hurt people's feelings, or you just have to be a little bit careful. Whatever the case might be, that idea of weighing options and influences within relationships comes to mind. And then 5 is just very simply watch over the weekend for signs of things to come. These two movements of the Sun and the Sun and Mercury across the South Node over the weekend really just point to the fact that there's an eclipse coming up. And so both of these events can just foreshadow where the eclipse is taking us. Watch for events to start conspiring and collaborating toward the meaning of the eclipse, in other words, on Saturday and Sunday. And I think if you watch for that and just don't anticipate anything, but just keep a watchful eye, there will be signs of things to come. And that's one of the most generic, but probably like accurate ways of looking at what will happen over the weekend. Watch for signs of the eclipse to come. So on that note, I'll sign off for the day. I hope that this has been useful. After I sign off, remember there's a little informational video about our Year 1 program that starts on November 16th. I hope you'll be able to join us for that program. Any questions about it as you're listening, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Don't forget that the early bird registration sale goes until October 15th, so you still have a little bit of time to save on the registration for the course. And if you need to use our need-based tuition, please do. It is there to make sure that people who really want to study can at the price that works for you, that doesn't create unnecessary stress. We think it should be an investment, and we have normal prices laid out. We ask people to do that if they can. If you're hurting or in a tight spot and you need that tuition, that kind of sliding scale, then use it. That's what it's there for. All right. On that note, I hope you're having a great day and that you'll have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. Hey, everyone. I'm glad that you're sticking around to hear more about the Year 1 program that's coming up. The program starts on November 16th of this fall, and I am here today to tell you all that the program includes and why I think you really like it if you're thinking about studying astrology. So a few practical details about the course as well. The class begins November 16th, as I mentioned, but it takes place on Saturdays from 12 to about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 11 to 2 Central, and typically classes are about 2 hours long. Sometimes they run over with Q&A and discussion, but you can always plan for about 2 hours and you won't miss any of the actual lecture content for the day. You may have to duck out a little early if Q&A or discussion is extending. Sometimes it does, which is why we say between 2 and 3 hours, but typically it's around 2. All of the classes are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you are more than welcome to watch the recordings at your own pace and on your own time. You have lifetime access to the recordings, and everything is housed on a student website. I want to actually give you a just a little preview of what that student website looks like. So I am going to open up my own version of Thinkific, which is the platform that we use. So here's are some of my courses. These are all the Nightlight courses I teach. You can see on the page. But I'm going to tune into, let's go to Nightlight 28, which is the section that began in June of 2024. So here you're going to see that we have orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar. Everything that you need to know how to access the course is there, and you'll have a version of this in your own panel that you get set up with when you enroll. And then our lessons are laid out. So lesson 1, we have the video, the audio, the slides, the transcript. We have the Q&A box transcript so you can see what people were saying in the chat box during class. We have flashcards. We have a workbook. We have planet and sign glyph flashcards. We have bonus material, videos that we like from YouTube that we link you to. Say, check this video out, check that video out. They go along with some of the things we talked about in class. So every lesson has material for you to go as far as you want with, but the main thing is the video, audio, slides, transcript, etc. are all listed there so that you can download and watch it on your own time if you can't attend live. Again, the live classes do happen on Saturdays for this cohort, starting November 16th. That is our first day of class. And then going forward, it always meets on Saturdays, and we give you the class schedule to map out. And the breaks that we have, the study sessions that we have, everything's mapped out on the class calendar for you. So those are just a few practical details that, just to kind of start us off with. So I'm going to take you over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to share with you some information about the program and sort of walk you through what it includes and what you can expect. So it is an almost year-long program. We typically finish between 10 and 11 months out of the year. It can depend a little bit on some of my teaching and scheduling, because sometimes I teach at conferences and it may delay some of our modules by a week or something like that. But it's typically around 10 to 11 months that the program lasts. So we call it our first year program. At Nightlight, we have a program for absolute beginners. You may want to check that out if you are like brand spanking new. That would be 8 to 10 hours of content that's really meant to set you up for the first year course. We sort of assume that if you're coming into the first year program, you already know a little bit about astrology. For example, you have some familiarity with the signs, planets, and houses. Maybe you know what aspects are, but you want to learn more about what they are. But if you are really at the very total entry level space, then try Astrology for Beginners. And when you take that, you could do that right away and then join the first year course in November, and you'd be perfectly set up for it. But anyhow, in this program, over the course of about a year, we work through 30 lessons that I lead. And those lessons are all 2 to 3 hours each, including lecture, a little break, and a Q&A portion where we open up for people to come on mic and camera and ask questions and have an interactive discussion about the material for the day. The program is broken into modules that cover a variety of topics in ancient Hellenistic astrology. That is the earliest era of horoscopic astrology. And so if you don't know a lot about the different schools of astrology, Hellenistic astrology is going to be the kind of astrology that you see a lot of astrologers practicing nowadays. It's become more popular in the last 30 years or so. And that is due to the fact that a lot of ancient texts with some of the original techniques of horoscopic astrologers were recently translated into the English language, and it's created this renaissance in terms of the use of ancient approaches to astrology. I have a background in modern psychological, archetypal, and evolutionary astrology, and so of course I bring those things to the table, but the course is primarily focused on the excavation of ancient techniques and the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers also espoused. The closest thing that I can tell you to what that looks like is, ask this question: do you resonate with the philosophy that you hear me take on my YouTube channel? If so, then you're going to love this course in terms of its philosophical and spiritual approach, because the spiritual approach to astrology that I teach is really at the heart of the program. And that's a big part of my life. I approach astrology from a spiritual standpoint. It doesn't belong to one religion or one particular school of thought, but you will hear me talking about things like the soul, the belief in the transmigration of the soul. You'll hear me talk about the need to be soul-centered in our client approach to counseling in astrology. You'll hear me have an appreciation for psychological dimensions of astrology, but also ancient astrology is really very, very good at developing your predictive capacity. We talk about what kinds of predictions are appropriate, how to make appropriate predictions, how to be the right kind of astrologer for our clients without inducing any fear. So there's a lot of care that goes into the development of this craft. But ancient astrology is really amazing when it comes to honing your predictive abilities. And then what you'll find is in this program, there's also a pretty significant emphasis on the psychological dimensions and client care. Anyhow, we go into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology and its techniques in this program, and the 30 classes are broken into modules. We work through the history and philosophy. We work through planets, houses, signs, aspects, essential and accidental dignities, and then we get into approaches to the delineation of natal charts. And then at the end of the program, almost a third of the program is dedicated to live client readings, where you're going to see me meet with a person and apply what we've been studying for an hour-long reading. We take a break, we come back, and then we workshop. How did I do that? Why did I make these choices? How did I handle this or that came up in the reading? And it becomes easily the favorite part for most students of the entire program, because by that point, you've got so much theory that you're really ready to see it put into action. We alternate those live client practice sessions with hands-on practice, where students get to bring chart questions into class that we work on. And that's also something that most people really love. A lot of people will look at the curriculum and say, well, I already know planets, houses, and signs and aspects and dignities. But not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology, because the approach that ancient astrologers had to these topics is vastly different from the approach that modern astrologers take. So you will be, in a sense, relearning basic things in a brand new way. And I think a much more enriching, deep, and philosophically clear way. It's really nice to know the why behind things. This program and Hellenistic astrology in general is very good at helping you understand the why behind everything that we do. Also, it's really important to participate when you study astrology in a living lineage. So one of the reasons I don't let people jump ahead to my second or third year programs is because I want you to be entrained to a lineage, a particular way of doing things that comes from an astrologer who has a very living, busy, active practice and who has had teachers themselves. I think that's important for astrological learning. That's the model that my own learning take, and so that's what I really want students to take away from my programs. Anyhow, so all of that aside, the second year program focuses, after we build our understanding of the basic delineation techniques of birth charts, in year 2, we move into timing techniques, which is all about when the karma of a birth chart is going to be active and expressing itself throughout the course of a lifetime. That's year 2. Year 3 focuses on the development of counseling skills at a much deeper level. And then we also have a 1-year horary program, which is about the development of a very specific predictive technique that can be a really amazing tool to add to your kit. That is 4 years worth of training programs that we have. However, I want to mention that many people take our classes just for the sake, purely for the sake of their own personal growth. Taking these programs is very much like being taught how to utilize a technology that for yourself will be deeply useful for the rest of your life, and maybe for close friends or family members around you. Many people come through our programs taking that benefit away and will study through all 4 years of our programs with no intention of being professional. This is their hobby. This is a spiritual tool that will have it will pay dividends over a long period of time. However, many people without the intention to practice come into our courses and discover that they're actually good at it and may end up reading for other people part-time. And then there are students who are deeply, intensely motivated to practice for other people. And it is not that our programs really make those people successful. Our programs contribute to your development, but it really is that some people have a calling to practice professionally. And these programs are designed to give you all the tools you need to develop that confidence and to develop a really coherent set of tools and to entrain yourself to a lineage, which you can also develop your own unique style out of. So those are some of the, the kinds of people that take our programs, you might say. So the 30 classes on the year are then broken into modules. And in between modules, we have 2 course directors who are present in all of the classes, and they lead breakout tutoring sessions where you can come in and review or ask questions about the module that we've just completed, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 3 classes each. So those breakout study sessions led by our tutors are outside of the 30 classes and very useful. A lot of people like to attend those because they also offer opportunity for community and just lively conversation. We also have 12 online webinar classes led by guest teachers that we host throughout the year. Those are free, and if you can't make them live, they're all uploaded into your student folder. You also have an interactive group forum discussion staffed with tutors who typically respond to questions that you have about the material within 24 hours. So if you can't attend a tutoring session or you just have a random question on a Tuesday night, you can pop it in there and you'll get an answer. We also have a ton of bonus material, optional quizzes, flashcards, tons of supplemental material that is there to help people go as deeply as they want. We have a reading list that is expansive. And that reading list, we don't expect anyone to accomplish. It's more so a resource that we give you saying, here, if you want to know all the things I've read, if you want to know all the things that I love, if you want to know all the things I recommend, here's a master list of everything for each lesson. You could go, PhD level if you wanted to and read thousands and thousands of pages. Or you might find that there's just one extra book that looks really interesting and you want to pick it up. But we pride ourselves on making sure you have a ton of resources. You have lifetime access to all the class recordings. You can email our staff or me throughout the year with questions, and my staff will also defer to me in the case that they don't know the answer to a question. So that is what the program includes. It starts November 16th. If you would like to join, at the bottom between now and October 15th, our early bird payments are available. So that saves you some money off the cost of the course. There is a 12-month installment plan that is cheaper than our normal plan, a one-time payment that's significantly cheaper than our normal one-time payment. So you get these little sales that we do until October 15th. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So if you are someone who would like to take this program, but you are on a fixed or tight budget, we have an application there. Click apply now. Just tell us what you need. We give a range. We say between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, what can you spend? And then we set you up with a plan for that tuition number per month. And that is available for anyone. We ask people to apply early because those spots are limited, but we are really accommodating. We try to make sure that nobody's priced out of a spiritual education. Like, this topic should be very accessible for people because I believe that the divine is speaking through the sky, and like anyone should have access to understanding what it's saying, right? So anyway, that is a bit about the program. I hope that this has been useful for you. If there are any questions you have, you can look over the curriculum content on the page, on the year 1 page. There's more information there. Check out the FAQ section for more questions. Email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see some of you in class soon. I think this is going to be a really powerful program because it's also starting right as Pluto's moving into Aquarius. And within the year, we're going to have a Uranus-Pluto trine with Uranus in Gemini. These airy signatures and the connection between Uranus and Pluto make for a very powerful year to advance our understanding of astrology. So it's a great election year for studying, and I hope to see some of you in class soon.